Hello everyone, and welcome to our third lecture video for this second half of the semester, with me at least. I do want to get into themes and tropes in literature, specifically dealing with loss, betrayal, and revenge. I want to talk about loss, which of course is dealing with death, and typically in literature we're talking about the death of a family member. In particular, we're also talking about the death of a parent, and even more specifically of that parent, we're talking about usually the death of a father, the death of a patriarchal figure that shapes our either characters or main character. Usually you'll see sometimes in a lot of literature, like the death of a father figure, like bringing the family together, right? Like that death culminates in, death usually always culminates in funerals, culminate in family getting back together, maybe even family that hasn't seen each other in a very long time getting back together to sort of commemorate or lay to rest their loved one, right? And usually in literature, the trope is that the family comes together and one or two things can happen. Either this family has been estranged from each other, right? And they do not talk on the regular, and there is some tension always brewing, and they come back together and maybe they work it out, right? Like maybe that is the end result. They like fight it out and they work it out. Or maybe the family's not really all that estranged at all. Maybe it is, or it could not be. But either way, they realize when they come together for this funeral that there was a lot of like underlying family tension that was never addressed, and it just makes everybody hate each other, and then they go their separate ways. And that's not only the death of the father becomes the death of the family kind of thing. But yeah, I'm also thinking about like the other trope of the father, sort of like if you've watched a lot of like superhero movies or even read a lot of superhero comic book like literature. That's also literature as well, on the graphic novel, right? So like we're talking about like most, if you notice in a lot of superhero stories and narratives, the superhero usually some part of their development as becoming a superhero usually involves the death of a parent for some reason, and a lot of times even the death of a father. A lot of times, right? Like Superman, right? Even Batman, right? These are our sort of main ones. But yeah, I want to talk more today about Spider-Man in particular. And we're talking about specifically the scene with Uncle Ben. So Uncle Ben, Toby is like, Toby's character, Peter, Peter in that movie, right, is, when he first comes into his powers, is using it for all the wrong reasons, selfish reasons, to like win money and fight, stuff like that. And the fighting promoter, he sort of gyps him out of his earnings, and a guy comes in and robs them, and Peter lets them go on and doesn't stop them, and he's like, well, you didn't give me my money, so I won't do anything good for you, whatever. I won't stop this thief from stealing from you. But that culminates in the robber then shooting Uncle Ben later on that night, where Peter finds him on the street, and he has of course, a bullet in his chest and stuff like that. And I think that's also the scene where he talks about with great power comes great responsibility, right? So this culminates, so the death of like Uncle Ben, even though Uncle Ben is technically not Peter's father, he is still a father figure, and the death of that sort of shapes him into becoming Spider-Man as we know him, right? Getting into betrayal. Betrayal usually involves two tropes kind of thing. So like we have the betrayal of family and friends or associates, and then we also have the betrayal of lovers. I'm going to start with the family, friends, and associates first. So family, friends, and associates usually almost always involve some sense of like, there is some sense of jealousy or envy from like one of our family, friends, or associates. Going all the way back to like Macbeth, right? Macbeth, he is an associate / confidant of the king, and of course he is sort of nudged by Lady Macbeth. They are sort of like co-conspirators in this to kill the king, right, so that they can take the mantle of the crown, which they do, right? And it's because they are jealous and envious, and they want power. Like, power is always a thing. Also, I'm talking about like Hamlet as well. Like Hamlet's uncle I don't know if anyone's read Hamlet, but it's kind of like pretty much the same storyline of The Lion King. I know you've probably seen that as a kid. But Hamlet, his uncle kills his father for the throne in order to like marry and get with his mom and also get the crown for it. So jealous and envy working there. I'm thinking about Fredo from The Godfather. That's a very old movie. So you probably do not know that, but you go and watch it. So Michael takes over the family business, right? Which is being the head mafia boss, right? For what is it, the Corleone family or something like that? And after his father died, after their father dies, so Fredo and Michael's father dies, and Michael takes over. Michael is the younger brother, right? And so of course Fredo is not happy about this because he is the eldest son. He feels like he should be the one running the family. He is the next in line. What he ends up doing is talking with one of Michael's rivals, where he lets it slip where Michael's going to be on accident. Like he's spitefully talking to Michael's rival, but then he accidentally lets it slip where Michael might be, which also results in Michael almost getting killed. And so of course Michael finds out, and Fredo lets it all hang out, they have a conversation, and he lets it just all spill out about how was jealous and envious. Like, it should have been me. I should be the one. I'm reporting to you. You should be reporting to me. I'm the older brother. I'm the big brother. And then, of course, Michael kills him. Because that's just how it goes, right? So revenge usually involves our main protagonist character, typically. When our main protagonist and our main character feels like there is no way that justice will be served or accountability will be held for the people who have done them wrong. So revenge is usually the last resort of like, I feel like, listen, the justice system is not going to help me. Nobody's going to be held accountable for what I've done, but somebody needs to be held accountable for what's been done to me. So I'm going to take matters into my own hands, and I'm going to seek vengeance, right? This is usually what happens when justice and accountability are not present and are not options for our main character. That is typically when vengeance and revenge come into play. I'm thinking about the Count of Monte Cristo, right? Like the Count of Monte Cristo play the main character Edmond Dantes, who was working for, he's said to be by Alexander Dumas. He is working for Napoleon at the time, or like under the king's regime, right? And he's moving up the ranks, and his friends get jealous. Okay, so that's where his friends, associates get jealous of him and the fact that he's moving up the ranks. I think they end up framing him, if I can remember the book correctly, they end up framing him for like conspiring against Napoleon or something like that, in which he gets thrown into jail. They frame him for that, and then somehow he manages to get out of jail and break out of jail, and so of course he seeks revenge on his friend. That's pretty much what the rest of the story is about, him going to get back at his friends who put him in, wrongfully framed him and put him in jail. I think about Hamlet as well, going back to that. Hamlet takes matters into his own hands as well, because he feels like there is nobody, he can trust no one. He feels like everybody is in on it. Like, he wonders if his mother is in on it. He just wonders who he can trust after he finds out that his uncle has done this thing, right? And thinking of my favorite revenge director, Quentin Tarantino. All his movies involve a revenge plot in some way, shape, or form. My favorite, of course, is Kill Bill. The sort of greatest, in my opinion, greatest film revenge plot that I have ever seen, with Beatrix Kiddo, played by Uma Thurman. And she of course, like, she works with a group of assassins. So of course, like, they turn on her, like Bill turns on her because he thinks that she left him for another man to start a new life, and so like they all turn on her. and they kill her. Well, they kill her, they beat her to death and leave her in the hospital, shoot her in the head, da 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 da. Of course she survives and then comes back to like kill everybody. To kill everybody because she thinks she's lost her daughter as a result, like she was carrying a child. She thinks she's lost her child as a result of this, and so she comes back because, you know, the law is not going to help an assassin, an ex-assassin, you know. And so she has to take matters into her own hands and by brute force kill each of them one by one, and that is the end of the story. I actually missed when I was talking about Betrayal, I missed the conversation about talking about the aspect and tropes of lovers. So I want to go back to that right now, actually. My bad. So Betrayal when involving lovers, usually we see this is a tale as old as time, biblical even. Usually when we're dealing with betrayal involving lovers, we're talking about a woman betraying a man. That is the common literary trope. A woman betrays the man, and the reason why I say this is a tale as old as time is because we're thinking about, like, I mean, it's commonly thought that Eve, right? Adam and Eve, like Eve sabotaged Adam. Like that's kind of like the cultural sentiment around, you know, the eating of the apple is that Eve undermined Adam. I'm thinking about like other stories in the Bible, like Delilah, like stories as old as Delilah as well. So Delilah is sent to seduce Samson, right? Because the source of Samson's power that gives him all the strength that helps him like fight whole armies by himself and take down whole armies by himself is in his hair. So they send Delilah in to seduce him because, of course, there is this trope that the ultimate hubris of any man is a woman, because men cannot control themselves in the presence of. It's kind of it is sexist. Like, let's just be honest. All of these stories are, you know, centered around women being the sort of downfall of men, and that's kind of the trope in literature as well, that women are the downfall of men. It sort of has been, now I guess we have these, you know, I guess if you think of like a film noir or something like that, you know, we have the femme fatale, right? The femme fatale character that seduces the man, but even like the femme fatale goes even farther back than film noir, right? Like it's not just sort of specific to film noir, but it's sort of seen throughout that same trope of the seductress, the woman who seduces the man to betray him in the end, is just very prominent. It has been around for a very long time. Even in some of our superhero movies, go back to superhero movies as well, thinking about like all of the Batman is noir, right? You know, the greatest detective, Batman, the greatest detective. And so a lot of the female characters in Batman or surrounding the Batman universe are femme fatale characters: Catwoman, Poison Ivy, etc., right? And these actually, the superhero, it's funny how the superhero versions, the supervillain versions of these like femme fatale characters in Batman have become sort of iconic and legendary. And also for like, I don't know, they seem to have sort of, people have taken them on as almost looking at them as like, these are strong women-led characters. They are sex positive. They are independent. They are, you know, I guess powerful, right? So like, even though they're still femme fatale characters, they're still seen very much so as like very good representation, which I think is interesting to me. But yeah, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole too much. I'm going to end it right there. Hopefully this gives you things to think about as you are currently going to be, if you are assigned this week's Discord discussion to lead Discord discussion. Of course, you can always, if you're not assigned to lead Discord, you can always add to. Your opinion is always welcome as well. But yeah, hopefully this gives you some thoughts to think about, some things to expand on as you are going to, you know, get into your discussion about this week's reading, The Hurt Will Make You Stronger, and think about themes of loss, betrayal, and revenge. And that's how, if some of these aspects even work their way into, yeah, that piece, that material, that work. But I will see you next time for the next video. And I am out.